Today on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler, we're going to take a look at and also show you how to install the Aries 50-inch double row LED light bar and the Aries surface mount LED work lights. Here's what our light bar is going to look like installed. As you can see, the double row LED gives us a really nice clean look, but also provides a lot of light. This is going to illuminate the trail or road ahead of you and ensure you're able to see where you're going. Now, they've put a lot of good technology into the light to make sure it's long lasting. You're not going to have to worry about issues down the road with it. Now you can see we've mounted ours with the Aries windshield mount. It kind of comes up and allows us a good attachment point, and the light fit in really well between those brackets. But for other applications, they're going to provide you with brackets to secure the light to, also give you some adjustment and a couple holes there. So it's going to be very typical things, kind of like what we see with other lights out there. However, I do like the adjustability on this one and the greater angle adjustment we have as compared to some of the other lights out there. I think this is going to give you the most flexibility. Now, Aries has installed Cree LEDs. They're grade A Cree LEDs, so some of the highest LEDs available out there on the market. And they use an excellent system as far as giving us some floodlight here on the outside of both sides, and then a good spot beam right there in the middle. So it's really going to illuminate everything around us. The housing itself is a very rugged aluminum. That's going to alleviate any concerns or issues that we have in regards to rust and corrosion. And then also, because even though the LED lights don't use as much power and aren't as hot as incandescents, they do generate some heat. You can see the fins on the back here designed to cool those. These fins are going to take that heat out and allow them to cool much quicker than if it didn't have them, and it'll ensure those LEDs last for a very long time. The coating is UV resistant, so we don't have to worry about it fading or getting kind of that powdery look to it. And it also has a no mar finish, so as trees or stuff might rub on it as we're going through, we're not going to have to worry about them causing any issues with that coating. And the lens on the front is a Lexan material, so unlike glass, if a rock were to come up and hit this or something like that, we're not going to have to worry about the cracking. Now, these reflectors are designed to be extremely efficient. When we compare these reflectors to other reflectors that we see on other styles of light, they're not nearly as effective as pushing that light out forward. These run a 96% effective rate, so any of the light that we're creating, we'll be using. Now, these are an instant on and off type of LEDs, so we don't have to worry about any kind of warm-up time, waiting for them to come on. You hit the switch, they're going to come on immediately. Aries has also ran this light bar through numerous tests, and it meets or exceeds all of those standards, so you can ensure that you're going to have good dust-proof, waterproof, shock resistance, even salt water when we get out on the roads in the winter. If you live near the beach, they've tested for all those elements, so it really is going to last a very long time for you. Now, the light bar is going to offer a total of 100 LEDs. The first 20 on the side here, on both sides, those are going to be the flood effect, so that's lighting up the peripheral area. The 60 in the middle are going to give us that spot beam, so not only can we see the things around us, but what's coming. Now, it's been my experience with light bars that the features that we've talked about that this light bar has, we generally see in the higher end types of light bars. The grade A Cree LEDs being one thing. Those are a very good and very efficient kind of higher end style LED, and the very efficient reflectors. You typically see that once you start moving up the scale. I think overall it's going to give you a very good light bar. It's been tested really well in all different kinds of environments, and you get it at a pretty cost-effective price. You can see our windshield mount bracket here is going to use the 3 bolts here on the side and the 2 in the front. Our little spotlight brackets here, we're just going to use the 2 in the front. Now, we're able to stack these so we can get them both mounted on there. It's going to look like a really nice setup once we get it installed. So we're going to start by getting those bolts removed so we can get our bracket in place. For these bolts, you'll want to use a 40 or a T40 Torx bit. Now, the 4th one down here on the bottom, you're not going to need to take that one out. It won't be used for this application. Now we're going to be using the 3 holes here on the side of the bracket. In those holes we want to use one of our new provided bolts, and also see the flat washer there? That's going to go through, but between that, see, we've got these black spacers. Those are going to go on there, and that's going to prevent this metal from making contact with the Jeep. And we're going to put that same bolt and spacer at every location, so all 5 of them here. Of course, we're stacking the brackets on the front, so we'll do that here in just a minute. And you can see we're stacking those. You don't have to put anything between the 2 brackets, but you do still want to use the same bolt with washer and spacer on the back side. Now we'll go through, we're going to get all 5 of our bolts snugged up. And we're going to torque those down to the specifications that are listed in the instructions. Once we have these torqued down properly, all 5, we're going to head over to the driver's side, and you're just going to do that exact same thing there. Now to install our lights, we're going to need to loosen this bracket up just slightly. Use a 5mm. That'll allow that to come down. It's just kind of tucked in there for storage. Allow that to come down, and we'll snug it back up just to something a little firmer to work with. I'm going to pass the plug through. I kind of like to keep that kind of tucked up like that. Gives us a little cleaner look when we want to route it where it's going. Now in our bracket, you can see the elongated square hole there, a rectangle shaped hole, I suppose. That's where your carriage bolt's going to sit down and in. That'll prevent it from moving while we're trying to tighten it. Now if you're mounting it to a slotted hole like that, highly recommend that you put a flat washer on before your lock washer. If it's going into a standard round hole and it's not too big of a hole, then you can just use the lock washer. With that being said, we'll place our lock washer on and also the provided nut. Now the flat washer was not provided with the light kit. The bolt, lock washer, and nut were. Then we're going to use a 1/2-inch wrench. We can get that snugged down. Now you might have room to get a socket in there as well. This ratcheting wrench just seems to work pretty well. Now with the help of an extra set of hands, we're going to get our light bar lifted up into position. We're going to be installing it on the Aries bracket. It's kind of a neat setup. You're not going to need additional brackets. Our bolts are actually going to go through the oblong holes right into the end of the light bar. As we thread our bolt in, you see I've got a little extension there just to help me. I'm going to have that black spacer in place as well. Just get it started there in the end. And you can see we'll just come over here to the other side and do the same thing there. Now we can adjust the angle of our light and we can finish snugging down our hardware. See, we've routed our wire just around the back side here. We're able to get it tucked in. Looks pretty nice and neat as it comes down. And we'll run it out right there. Since we're also putting in the little spotlights, we'll just put a zip tie on those to hold them together and eventually tuck it right in underneath that cowl. Now to get this removed, if you do want to do it in this manner, you're going to use a T30 Torx bit to loosen these. Should be able to lift up on them just a little bit. And you don't really want to put it down in this area. You want it to go through that gap that exists on that back side. That'll alleviate pinching the wires, causing issues. Now we'll lift up on it. I'm going to feed those through. As you can see there, with those tightened back in place, your wires aren't going to be pinched. See, we can still move those in and out a little bit. That's the ideal situation. You certainly don't want these to be in an area where you're going to tighten the steel down on them and cause issues. We're just going to keep those together using a little zip tie there. We can trim off our excess. Next up, we'll put our covers in place. It's going to kind of block that hole off for your adjustment. So definitely make sure you've got that adjustment made before you put these on. Now we're just going to line up the holes in that bracket. We're going to take the small self-tapping screws and get those threaded in. You'll want to use a T20 Torx bit for those. And of course, you'll want to put one in all 4 locations. All right, with that one on, we're just going to head over to the other side and do the same thing there. Now on each of the lights, they've got that protective film on them, so we're just going to pull that off of there. Now when hooking up your lights, traditionally you're going to use a relay harness just like this that's provided with the kit. Essentially what this does is provides you with a switch that's going to be mounted inside of your vehicle. That's going to control the relay. So all the power that we need for the lights goes directly through the relay, not through the switch. This is just meant to open and close the relay. As you can see, you've got the dual plugs there. Those are going to plug into the 2 lights. They'll both be controlled off of one switch, and then we'll just need to hook up power and ground. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward situation. Hardest part really is going to be getting this into your dashboard and drilling the hole you'll need there. Now the customer here has decided to go with a wireless system. It's called the Trigger. It's basically a bank that provides you with a relay system that works through Bluetooth. Now the Aries lights that we're working with today have plugs designed to go directly into the relay harness. Makes it a nice watertight connection for you so you don't have any issues. But since we are using the Trigger system, we're going to use one of the Trigger pigtails to make our connection here. So we'll be deleting the plug. We just use some side cutters and cut those off. And we'll color match our wires and get everything put back together. And once we have that nice and secure, we'll continue on with routing our wires. And that's going to complete our installation of the Aries LED light bar and work lights using the Aries brackets on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.